All right, welcome everyone to another edition of Deconversion Stories. Today I have this gentleman here named Shane that I happened to actually showed up on my For You page on TikTok one day, and I heard you start talking about deconstructing, deconverting, and I was like, oh, this is right up my alley. So I watched a couple, and then I sent you a message. I got to have this guy on the show.
Great.
So, so it is happening now. We made it happen. You are officially the last guest for the show for this year, Shane, because I always take December off.
Oh,
So,
wow. Nice.
yeah,
I'm glad
so
TikTok did its algorithmic thing and found us and knew we'd like each other.
yeah. Well, there you go. So we have you on the show, and today we are going to be getting into your story. So basically, what I ask is for folks to take us back to the times of indoctrination and what you went through back then, and then how those dominoes started to fall, which led you to questioning, and finally, ultimately, finding your way free and claiming as an atheist.
You betcha. So I guess from the beginning, I was born in Utah, in Salt Lake City,
Okay. Okay.
and was born into Mormonism. So
Oh,
I got the from birth indoctrination that happens
right, right.
with that. I was raised in a family. I'm the sixth of seven children, so I was the youngest which is also very classic Mormon. Um,
Hmm.
I was the youngest for 5 years, so my last one didn't come along until then. So I got treated like the youngest for the first 5 years of my life, and I have a bit of the younger syndrome as a result of that.
Right, right.
What do you mean the younger syndrome? I too am the youngest. I
Oh,
don't know whatever you could
from,
mean.
from my exactly, yeah, from my experience, I got a little extra love. It seems like, and maybe the others would agree. I don't know or disagree, but
The
There
baby
seems
is
to be.
least loved. They have to work the hardest. It's the worst to be the youngest.
well,
I was firstborn, so
yeah. So you had to do all the work, right? You had to set
yeah,
that.
pretty much, yeah.
But yeah, by the time you get to the sixth child, the parents are just done parenting, right? I got to do what I wanted to do, and yeah, and they loved me for it. So,
Oh man, I totally missed out.
well, part of that, whether it was the last child syndrome for a moment. Again, I'm not the last child, but for having that for 5 years, I kind of could do no wrong also. But I was also like a very good kid growing up. I
Sure.
consumed everything that I was taught by my elders and respected the wise counsel of those who lived before me and lived more. And so I took it in. I ate it all up. Religion as well. So as I
Hmm.
was raised into all the practices of Mormonism, starting young, teaching you about baptism, teaching you about eternal families, teaching you about just teasing you with who this Joseph Smith guy was and what a hero he was and how he saved humanity by being God's called prophet in the last dispensation. And then by the time I
Okay.
was 8, it was just the next natural step to get baptized as a member into the church. And I walked the path just right all the way through my teenage years, when you start to have those emotions and start to become attracted to the ladies and whatnot. I stayed good, and I didn't want to make any mistakes and do any heavy petting and stayed away from all that and did everything good, so that I went through and served my mission when I turned 19. I
Wow, how'd that go?
It was fantastic. Looking back, I have a
For
different view of it
for
now.
what
But
it was.
at the time, yeah,
Sure.
you bet. So I went down to Chile on my mission. I got to learn another language. I
Cool.
had a real hard time learning the language by the books in the first 2 months, where you just do a real regimented training session where you're in just 24 hours in learning the gospel and then learning the language. But then once I got down into the country after 2 months and was just walking the streets and talking with people, the language just came in a snap. And
Yeah.
for believers, when you're in Mormonism and someone goes to another country like that and they pick up the language very, very quickly, that's the Mormon version of the gift of tongues.
Oh, really? Okay, I
Yeah,
get
yeah.
it.
I
Sure.
don't know if you ever know, like Mormons. They don't pretend to speak in some weird language or
Right.
whatever and spout nonsense or whatever. Their interpretation of the gift of tongues is that we're able to send missionaries around the world to foreign countries, and they pick up these languages very, very quickly in order to continue to spread the gospel. And that's the Mormon version of gift of tongues.
Well, yeah, like natural born ciphers almost.
Yeah. Yep. And
Wow.
so that was up through like age of 21. I graduated from college from a university here in Utah. Through all of this, I was making all the right moves and taking all the right steps to continue in my faithful path. The one thing I did a little bit differently is I got all the way through college and I didn't get married. It's without saying it too bluntly, it's strongly encouraged in Mormon culture that you find a spouse as soon as you get back from your mission and start making babies.
Right.
Multiply and replenish the earth is the commandment. So I didn't do that. There was something in there that just made me think, I want to get out of college and go places. I had lived in the same valley in northern Utah growing up. I went to college in the same county, same valley. And there was something just itching inside that I wanted to get away. So literally the day I graduated on Friday, ceremony on Saturday, Sunday, I had a one-way flight to Alaska. I took a summer job up in Alaska.
Doing what?
I was working on a train, just a tour guide on this little train that does a 3-hour tour out of Skagway, Alaska. So the cruise ships come into this town.
Yeah.
Passengers. If you've been on an Inside Passage cruise, you might know what I'm talking about.
Me and my wife.
I'm in BC, so.
Me and the wife for our honeymoon, we were actually looking at some of the Alaskan cruises because everything was getting shut down from COVID. So we were like, oh, this Alaska thing's still available. And I remember on one of the excursions, it was a fucking long ass train ride. So you would have been the dude on the train.
I would have been the tour guide on the train, the PA system, and I loved it. So it was the first time I got away. I had been gifted like a car by my parents, and I sold that to have enough money to sort of just get away. So went to Alaska. But nothing, there was still nothing in, I wanted to leave and get away and experience more of the world, but it wasn't anything to do with religion or trying to discover anything more. I was still very faithful, still paying my full tithing as I was doing all of this and not making moral mistakes. And
right.
So several years go by and I come back to Salt Lake and I get my master's degree here and I meet my wife. My wife and I, we date and we get married in the temple as good Mormons do. And that was 2010. So we've been married for 12 years and we have a baby. We're still good. And then the second baby comes along and I have a couple of experiences where my epistemology, I can pinpoint a moment where my epistemology and the way I understood human psychology shifted. And it was sort of that, if these are the rails in my pathway of life, it was just a little shift that eventually sort of sent me in a new direction. So we can start talking about that but that's kind of my upbringing, my indoctrination, and how I got to where I then started to sort of veer from the path.
Yeah, let's get into that. What were you gonna ask, Mikey?
Before we leave your younger days, was there anything particularly looking back on a particularly heinous in high school? For the ladies, it's usually purity culture, they weren't allowed to wear certain clothes, but for the boys it's usually I couldn't go out and do this, or certain music or movies I wasn't allowed to watch. So was there anything that I did kind of you didn't get to really experience that kid part of it?
So I played football, basketball. I was the captain of the football and basketball team, and played baseball. Was on the team, didn't love it as much. Then started playing tennis. So in that culture, you'd think that I'd be someone who would throw out an occasional cuss word. I didn't swear a single time my entire life. I think I might have said hell once through all of my high school sports experience and just my whole high school experience, right? Wow. So the purity culture there was deep. Saying a bad word was a sin to me. And with the girls, I did have a girlfriend. We had strict curfews. I always had to be home at this time. We drew lines right at certain clothing points when we were kissing and whatever else, and kissing had to be timed, and there wasn't It couldn't ever be too long.
Timed?
I mean, softly timed. Like as soon as we were kissing for too long, we started to feel more temptations to go further. So we would draw the lines, and we even set up little rules at the time where like it's a big thing in Utah to do dance dates, where like prom and there's a whole bunch in Utah. There's more than just like prom and senior prom and homecoming, right? There's a bunch of them. There's about one a month. It seems like there's like these dance dates. And so I set a rule with my girlfriend that we would alternate who we like a dance. Like if I went to a dance date, if I went to prom with her, the next dance date in line, I had to go with somebody else. Just to sort of like keep things.
Right.
I actually, looking back, I think that's kind of cool because it didn't like keep us just like we were able to see and meet new people and all that. So there were some benefits to that, but it was purely all religious based, right? All these limitations and things we were doing to just remain pure. So yeah, purity culture runs thick in small town, in rural Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Sounds like it.
Yep.
All right. So, I think my biggest interest is to find out what it was that started you on that path away.
Yeah. I was working for a tech company at the time, and I work in HR, and I was creating a presentation on effective questions at the workplace and how they spark innovation. I based my presentation on pretty much entirely on a book by a man named Warren Berger, and the book is called A More Beautiful Question. So most people have these books that are like some sort of science-based book, or even like a book that's directly addressing the problems of the religion or faith they belong to, that like start their crisis. For me, I don't think that could have ever happened because I would never have allowed it, or I would have gone in with my defenses up. But here I was reading a book that was just about business and how to like be a better employee and how to promote critical thinking and using effective questions and a methodology for that in order to spark innovation at the workplace. So it completely it was the way in for my brain and the defenses that I had up, right? I did this presentation. The book kind of walks through the psychology of question asking, how it helps you at the workplace. And I broke it down, created a great presentation with breakouts and exercises for my whole company. And the closer of the book is like a little chapter that says, in summary, this works for everything in your life. It's not just at the workplace. It's not just to spark innovation. It's not just to invent. You should apply this to all other aspects of your life. Ask questions deep and, go beyond what you've ever asked for. And so I closed the presentation with that same thought. After the presentation, I had an employee who walked up to me, just kind of was telling me, good job, loved the presentation, loved this, loved that, thank you. And at the end, he said, and what you said at the end there is totally true. We should apply deep, critical questioning to every aspect of our life, right? And I was like, yeah, absolutely we should. And he leaned in and said, except the church, right?
Oh.
What did that do to you? Like,
if I can create sort of like a visual representation of what went on in my brain, it was like a kaleidoscope of thoughts and principles. And I was just kind of like, wait a minute. Why is that the one thing that I claim is the most important and would be the most bulletproof of any questions,
right?
And the most sacred? Why is it that I truly never have been willing to let myself ask those deeper questions? That's not right. Something's not right there. That was it. That was the sort of like shift from there.
You gotta remember though, when you're in the church, or in my case, synagogue, because I was raised as a Jew, they often emphasize that these things shouldn't be questioned. So maybe that's kind of what sits in your brain is this stuff we know is true and we don't need to question it, or we shouldn't question it because that would be considered, almost blasphemous or something like that. So
yeah,
maybe that's what it was that kept you from digging deeper into that belief.
Totally. It's really, so Mormonism is very fascinating for me, and obviously I have a bias towards it because it's where I was for 40 years of my life. but they have such a high, such a high, what's the word I'm looking for? They put a high emphasis on education still. I mean, BYU is actually a reputable school, and has a lot of great programs in it. And so it's like higher education is a very, very big part of what they push as part of their culture. But they also know they have this fine balance where it's like, yeah, you can do all of this other stuff, but like careful with philosophy, careful with with questioning the religion, and remember, these certain things, so you don't ever really have to question those things. Like always remember that you have that experience where you were told by God himself that this thing is true. So there's no reason to spend time questioning that over there, but definitely go and like question all these other things over here. And so it's just a really fascinating way that they had me, right? Like I did that. I was all about education, and went through it all with flying colors, and felt like I was being the most honest, questioning, critical thinker I could be. But I didn't need to question that over there, and I felt good about it. I still felt okay and honest about it until this one little moment where like I just somehow the words got in there in the right moment, and I was like, no, fuck me, I haven't been doing that.
Right. So what did you start to dig into after that moment?
It started with podcasts at first. I had a couple other coworkers who were sort of like, oh, hey, you ask those kinds of questions. Well, you might like listening to this guy over here who like talks about those questions. And so Bill Reel has been a big voice in the podcast community for Mormonism, and the exit there. John DeLynn, of course, and the Mormon Stories is endless content to listen to there. So at first it was just those kinds of things. Here's the thing: is I wasn't afraid of. I immediately broke down the concept of anti-Mormon or anti-Mormon lies, because this book had sort of like told me all about how like there's an honest side to everything. There, you don't have to say that because that I disagree with that it's a lie. And if someone's trying to say that that's a lie and that you should ignore it, that's more reason to go look at it. It's never a good reason. And so immediately when I had this epistemological shift in my brain, those sorts of things just came down. I didn't really fear looking at what I used to call anti-Mormon lies or anti-Mormon material. It was like, this is just
propaganda.
Right. This is, now I just saw everything as information that I can consume, chew up, and decide for myself what it all adds up to.
Sure. Absolutely.
So it started with podcasts, then it got to books, and eventually the CES letter. I don't know if you've heard of CES letter and how big of an influence it's had on the ex-Mormon community.
I have not heard of that, actually.
It started as
just talk to my friend Jimmy. He would know, Jimmy Snow.
Yeah. So the quick backstory is that this believer was asking. CES stands for Church Education System.
Oh, okay, sure.
Basically the formal education arm, the ecclesiastical education arm in the church. So when you go to high school in Utah, there's a building next to most high schools. It's the seminary. It's usually just off campus of high school, like a walk across the street. And so they go over and students in high school take an hour out of their high school curriculum to go over and make sure they get their daily dose of seminary. So the CES is that system, and then it goes up into institute at the universities. So it's this believer was having some questions, and he went to the director of the CES program that he was closest to, and he wrote a letter to him because the CES director said, "Send me all your questions and I'll answer them." And so he put them all together, and this letter just got bigger and bigger and bigger. Eventually he sent it. He's like, "I'm just going to send this to you because it continues to grow, and I'll never, it seems like I'm not going to finish." And so then he published it online. And so now it's a downloadable PDF. And now I think it's actually printed into a book, and it's gone through several iterations. It's kind of a living document. Anyway, that letter, cesletter.org, has been a huge movement just among people who have left. It's like, hey, you want my reasons for why I've left the church? Just go to cesletter.org. That'll give them to you.
Sounds like we just got ourselves a nice little list for bounty hunting, Neil. We'll
Yes.
just go through everybody who left their letter, and we have now had guests forever.
Oh yeah, I think the hashtag CES letter is alive and well. Yeah, you can definitely find content and yep.
If you guys want the PDF, I did drop it in the chat, so you guys can just click on that and it'll take you there, and you can download it, read it at your leisure. But pay attention to the interview.
Yes.
Don't you leave this window. You open up a separate tab. You stay here.
Another one that gets mentioned along with CES letter a lot of the times is letter for my wife. Similar type of document. People will often say, I don't use CES letter. I use letter for my wife because it's written in a bit of a softer tone. CES letter CES letter is very direct, and some people see it as snarky. Where letter for my wife, it feels like if you were to write a letter to your loving wife and you wanted to explain this in the most loving terms, then that's kind of the approach there.
Speaking of wife,
She in the chat.
I kind of want like how did the family sort of take on this?
Yeah, so my younger brother left. He sort of faded away from the religion in high school. So he was already one that had gone, but he did it sort of in a slow, just went inactive, and he hasn't pulled his records from the church. He hasn't been outspoken about it in any way, and so it's different. When that happens, at least in Mormonism, from my experience, believers can simply say, "Oh, he's just struggling, or he's just inactive, and he'll probably come back someday, or he's making poor decisions," right? It's different when someone wants to say, "No, I believed as well as you believe right now, and I now no longer believe. I believe it's false now."
Right.
And we can talk about that if you want, but they don't. That's totally different. So yeah, this was a new thing for my immediate family. It's everywhere now. The 5 years from the time that I did it till now, it has become more common, and it's getting more and more common every single year. The church is having to deal with ways to have conversations with loved ones who've left because it's just so common. But with my family, I probably could have just faded and slowly had very subtle conversations, or they might have just heard through this person and that. But there was an event that forced it upon me to have sort of a coming out week with every one of them. In Mormonism, faithful members who get married, just as I did, get married in the temple. If both of the husband and wife are worthy to go into the temple, which, keep in mind, worthiness includes paying a full tithing.
Of course.
So if you're worthy to go into the temple, you can both get married in the temple, which is being sealed for time and all eternity. So I did that. My nephew was doing that. And when you do that, all the other worthy members in your family are invited to come into the temple and see the ceremony. But if you're not a worthy member, you don't get to see the actual wedding ceremony. You sit outside in a waiting room until they come outside and they're married. They go in not married. The ceremony happens with the worthy people. They walk out married, and you all celebrate when they walk outside.
Awesome. Hold on one sec.
Who pay, and does it happen the same where because I'm saying if I'm the father of the bride, and then they make me wait outside, I'm not paying for jack if I gotta wait out in the hallway. I'm not putting a dime towards this if I'm gonna be in the waiting room with everybody else.
That would be a very strong hold on your boundaries, and I admire you for that. Yeah.
My friend Stacy wants to know is that the celestial marriage?
Yeah, that's what you would call a celestial marriage, because celestial is the highest degree of glory that you can get in the afterlife in Mormonism. There's 3 levels. And so you need a celestial marriage in order to make that highest degree of glory.
To get to that level.
Yep. Third degree.
Marry a star.
It's like super happy heaven. So
super happy heaven.
Double heaven.
It's triple.
Triple
There's
heaven.
3 levels, Mike. There's 3 levels, so we got to give it at least triple.
Sounds like a video game now.
I'd play it.
Oh, it would be too traumatic for me. Too triggering. Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too close to home. Too close to home.
So the event, getting back to the story, the event was my nephew was getting married, and all the worthy people were. I wasn't going to be able to go, and so I knew that what was going to happen was that my wife was going to be able to go, because she continues in her believing way, right? I can't say I won't speak for her. She has her own beliefs. We're on different pages. We make it work. We both have to meet each other halfway and make compromises a lot. But
Sure.
in this moment, she was going to be in the temple with all the other worthies, and all the worthies were going to be saying, the church would never say the worthies, obviously that's me. They're going to ask her, where's Shane? And so she's going to have to sort of live that pain with every single one of them asking her. And I didn't think that was fair to her. So I took it upon myself to make sure that I talked to everybody in the weeks leading up to that event, so that they wouldn't have to ask her, and she didn't have to, go through that with all of them. So that was my coming out, the sort of the forced coming out moment. I sat down with each of my siblings and I rehearsed what I was going to say. And I basically kind of said, here are the lines, and then here are my boundaries. Right. And that's what I went into each conversation with. Sit down one-on-one. Just wanted to let you know the wedding is happening next week, and I won't be in the temple. And it's not because I have something. It's because I am no longer convinced that the truth claims of the church are real. I don't think that they are real. I don't think that they are true. And so I won't be in the temple for those reasons. And I wanted you to know that, so that you didn't have to ask Ash and put her through that pain.
Right.
And then after that, it was like, okay, now you know, and wait for the response. And I had boundaries for the responses, and that was how it went. Most of them went fine. A couple of them were a little more difficult.
Harsh.
Yeah. One sister, she gave me what's it called? Pascal's wager.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I got Pascal's wager with one sister, where she doesn't know that, and it wasn't condensed. It was a long version of it. Like why wouldn't you? The conversation was kind of like, here's the way I look at it, which is interesting for her to say. Here's the way I look at it. Like what she's kind of walked through this process maybe in her head, where why not? You already know that the life you're living is really great, and you've been happy so far, right, in your life. And so what's wrong with continuing to live that way through the rest of your life? Then if it's true, then you're in a good place. You're in good shape. If it's not true, then you've lived a happy life. Right? Like what's wrong with that idea? And I as soon as she was halfway through it, I already recognized it as Pascal's wager.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, better to believe than not.
Yeah, and my response was just about authenticity. Like I could try, and in fact, to be honest, like I've been doing a version of that for like the last few months, going to church on Sunday to support the family and be there, even though like what they're saying, I'm just like in my head going, oh my gosh, it's all falling apart. And this brings up a really important moment. My wife's very private, but I try to be sure that anytime I talk to her, talk about her in this story,
right,
it's to show like how believers can still be so empathetic and how it can make a huge difference. I was in the last Sunday that I attended, and we're in the big group meeting where everybody's there, where they do the sacrament, which is the bread and the water. And I broke down. I was bawling because everything was, I was going through that sort of like crash of identity, and it just, you kind of, the groundlessness was so real in that moment. And everybody else in the room probably thought, oh, he's having a spiritual experience, because in Mormonism, crying and spiritual experience go like hand in hand. But my wife knew, she even though she was sitting there as like a believer next to me, she could see and feel my pain. And so she looked over at me and she said, I think it would be best for you to take care of yourself right now and go home.
Right.
So she kept the kids. She stayed. I walked home, and I'm really thankful that she gave me that space to like go away, walk away from the pain that I was feeling from being there.
And
That's pretty cool.
And a good walk will do you good.
Yeah.
Like a good 20-minute walk when you're upset. Oof.
Yeah.
That's just what the doctor ordered some days.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
I do it quite a bit. We have a little. I'm on where the river splits here, the Fraser River. So I walk all the way around.
Mm.
So you get a nice little river walk and stuff like that. And sometimes you get lucky and you see the otters. So you can run down there and you throw
otters.
some stuff in there. Yeah, we got river otters, buddy.
Well, you've got an advantage for the brain break there. If you can see wild otters.
Oh yeah, we see otters.
Not
Sometimes harbor seals pop in too once in a while.
Oh, I get skunks.
Oh, I get skunks too.
Just
damn
skunks.
Sitting out front the other day, and one walked right past me. I'm like, "Oh, you just keep going there."
Yeah.
Keep fucking going. He just kind of looked up and then just kept going. So.
Keep it moving. Keep it moving, Pinstripe.
Keep on going. I am not a threat to you.
Yeah, the coolest thing I think I see here quite often is the Cooper Sox when they're chasing the birds.
Yeah,
you'll just see them just whip right past you, and the poor little bird that he's chasing is like, it's like Tweety being chased by some evil eagle or something.
Have you seen a catch? Have you seen one?
Yeah, quite a few. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Once he parked his ass right in a tree in front of the place and just started munching down on this. I think it was a robin or something that he caught, and I'm just like, oh, great. I think I'm going to go inside now. I don't need to see it. It was already toast by the time he brought it.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. My own private Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom right in front of my house there.
Yikes, Neil. Mutual of Omaha. That's taking it back,
I know,
brother.
showing my age. Right?
That's before National Geographic.
So I don't know if you're. I mean, 2020 was the year when all the crazy shit happened at once, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
One of the crazy shit things that happened in my neighborhood. My wife walked out the front door. I'm like 3 miles from downtown Salt Lake City.
Okay.
It's definitely. I mean, it's a residential neighborhood, but it is the residential neighborhood that's right off of the city, right?
Uh-huh.
And she walks out the front door and she sees what looks like a dog, and she looks at it again, and she's like,
"Oh, coyote!
That's a coyote running right down the middle of like 15th East in Salt Lake City."
Yeah,
like
we get them here too,
and it was broad daylight. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Coyotes. Where are you in California?
No, I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Oh, so that's right. You're up north. You said that.
He's north of the wall.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
We actually have coyotes and coyotes, the half-breeds of the wolf-coyote crosses.
Oh, wow.
And coyotes are nasty motherfuckers.
That doesn't sound like a great combination. Coyote. If you get the worst of both of those, you're in trouble.
It's like peanut butter and chocolate. It's the best mixture.
No,
for an apex predator.
They are
the North American king.
Yeah.
Coyotes are, at least they're not. I mean, they can be aggressive, but around here they kind of just, if they see you, they run the other way. Coyotes, no, they come right at you.
Wow. That you grow full grown, not full grown humans.
They'll start. They won't leave. Let's put it that way. If you're walking down and they're walking down, they'll cross the street, but then they'll keep their eye on you. But they'll keep coming right towards where you're walking.
Yeah, they're not really afraid.
Yeah. So then of course the reports started coming up in the news, and someone's cat got taken. Yeah. I mean, if a coyote comes down in Salt Lake City, because we're right here in the mountains, they're there. They just don't come down in broad daylight. You know, they're such a nocturnal animal around here that it was just a shock to see him. So he must have been hungry. So he was definitely looking for an easy prey, like a cat or a dog or something, small dog.
Coyotes around here are pretty fearless as well. They'll walk in the city too.
Come here, Zero. I have a very large dog. Come here, Zero.
Oh yeah, he's huge.
Come here. Wake up, you lazy ass. Come here. Well, whatever. He's like this big.
Oh,
but I almost had to buy like the little, like, I don't know if you've seen them. They're like lime green or pink, and it's like the little like porcupine things for their back.
Yeah.
If we get a house with a yard, he might have to go out in that sometimes, because they are bad. They will snatch your small dog right off your porch. Yeah, they're not. And well, we got hawks here too, and eagles and shit. So
Yeah.
I'm like,
they're
Zero,
out.
no.
They're out for
I've
meat.
seen an eagle go off with a cat before.
Hey,
Wow.
laying out in
Yeah,
the sun like an
leavenworms,
idiot,
yeah.
and here comes an eagle.
Death from above, they say, right?
Yeah, that was one of the things that I loved about being up in Alaska for those 2 summers was getting to see the bald eagles, and the wildlife up there is just so big. Like a moose in Alaska is not the same as a moose in any other part of North America. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, big
Did he?
boy.
Oh yeah. It's like a mop with legs.
I think
How
he's
does he even see where he's going?
He doesn't.
He runs into the wall.
Zero's awesome. I got to play with him when I was over in Chicago there with Mikey.
His name's Zero.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a good name. I like it.
By the way, Mikey, obviously to honor Nightmare Before Christmas and your little pooch, I found out my spider was a male after the second molt.
Mm-hmm.
So I named
How do you
him
tell
Zero.
a spider's How do you tell a spider's sex?
Well, the with the female, it's a jumping spider. So the females tend to be quite fluffy, so to speak. Like they're quite fuzzy. Males
like
have
furry.
less fur.
Okay.
So, and he ended up with less fur, and he's got all the male pattern, right? Because females will go through what they call a brown stage. And usually after the second molt, the brown stage kicks in for the females. So no brown stage. So it's definitely a male. And they told me I was getting a female, but they weren't sure because it's hard to sex spiderlings. So
You got
So, yeah,
male spider baldness. Is what I'm hearing.
male
Male
pattern
pattern
spider
spider
bald.
bald.
Have you always loved spiders?
Oh yeah, I used to raise tarantulas. Like I've had Chilean rose hairs, Mexican red knees, pink toes, Goliath bird eater.
Those are drinks, Neil.
Yeah, those sounds like some cocktails I've seen on menus.
No, they're spiders.
The hell is a Mexican red knee?
I'll have one of those.
Give me 2 of them.
Yeah.
Actually, I believe now Mexican red leg or red knee are quite hard to get because they were so popular in the pet trade, being one of the most docile of the species, that they just disappeared. So they're slowly but surely coming back, but you can't get them anymore right now. So
Wow.
as far as I know. Yeah.
Don't spiders have like 3,000 eggs? How y'all running out of spiders?
I don't look at me, man. I'm not the one getting them pregnant, so don't look at me.
Spiders ain't putting out.
Yeah, we talked about the crossbreed between the coyote and the wolf earlier. I hope there's no human spider out there.
Well, we've already got Spider-Man, so that's good enough.
That is
right?
true.
We don't need anything else like that.
Yes, let's stop at Tom Holland, please. Like no, nothing else.
What? They're bringing Andrew Garfield back for another of his version.
No, I mean as far as mixing humans and spiders, like he's the last one that gets mixed. Don't be. No, I don't need no X-Men running around downtown Chicago spraying webs on shit.
Denise like signing off.
Oh yeah, she doesn't like spiders.
So you brought up Andrew Garfield, and that's an opportunity to bring us back on the rails. Okay,
cool.
So Andrew Garfield recently starred in a TV series, I think it was on Hulu, called Under the Banner of Heaven, which is based on the book. I don't know. Did you get a chance to watch that?
I have not.
No.
I have not.
If you're interested in Mormonism, Mormon history at all, and a really cool murder story that happened right in the heart of mainstream Mormonism culture, and what can happen to people who cling on to the fundamental ideas of Mormonism, so much so that they would sacrifice a life. That is a really good one.
What was it called again?
It's called Under the Banner of Heaven. And there's a moment in this series. I don't want to spoil anything in case you want to watch it, but there is a moment.
I'll watch it.
There is a moment that focuses on. It gets very up close and personal with that. The hard moment I told you about earlier, where I was crying in the chapel. It gets up close and personal. Andrew Garfield nails it. The emotion and and what you feel that he's going through and the pain that he feels in the moment, it just comes through the screen. So maybe it's because I've been there, right? When I was watching this late at night, it was one I couldn't talk my wife into watching with me, but I was watching at night, and this scene happens where he's going through this pain, this groundlessness, and he's losing his identity, and everything he thought was important was now like falling apart and looking fake to him. And he just bawls. And I just bawled in my living room when I watched it. You guys are going to think all I do is cry in life. But
it doesn't matter.
You know,
I cry a lot too.
I'm still.
I cry on animated shows, so
yeah.
I'm still drying my clothes from Wakanda Forever, so don't worry about it. Like,
Oh,
man, they got me good
Did they
4 or
get
5 times. I was like, God, don't show
I haven't
his
watched
face.
that one yet.
Yeah, they got me.
But that's you know, Neil, you found me on TikTok, and so I only got on TikTok. I mean, I've been a just a browser and a lurker on TikTok for, I don't know, a year or so or more. Slowly building up the people that I'm following and whatever, and let the algorithm pin me and know me better than myself, all that. But then about 2 months ago, I recognized that TikTok may be one of the places that I can help those deconstructing the most. So this is another thing that as part of my deconstruction, when I was in that heart, yes, crying is definitely part of the process, Deneen. Thanks for saying that. And it you know, I've never had a problem with crying when I needed to cry, thankfully.
Yeah.
Right. And so
it's good to do.
Yeah, and I always feel better afterwards, and it helps me process. Right. And so I had one of these moments one night, and I said to myself, okay, there are so many people who I mean, I've always been a very social person. I've had no problem building new social networks wherever I go. And so I knew I'd be okay. I knew I'd find a new social network. I knew I'd find people who like believe the same as me in order to share with them. And what up, David or Dave? And I knew I'd get there. And so I said to myself, when I get to that place, when I heal, I'm going to take some time for myself and find my ground again. But once I do, I'm gonna be sure to look back and help those and pull the hands of the people that are coming through, you know, after.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And so I imagine that's part of what, you know, inspired you to do what you're doing right now, and I really appreciate it. And I saw so many people like this creating content, putting it out there, offering platforms where voices can be heard, stories can be shared. One of them was Recovering from Religion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great organization. I always have them linked in the description box.
Yep. And so I started volunteering for Recovering from Religion almost 2 years ago.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And that was the first step.
I did a couple fundraisers for them too.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So I'm the Salt Lake City support group facilitator, the virtual support group.
Amazing. Well, I'm even more glad I ran into you, Shane, because
good.
I try and promote their work as often as I possibly can.
Oh,
in
awesome.
The description below.
Yes, excellent. If you are looking for resources to help you through your deconstruction, it's always one of my top recommendations for any denomination. They have a huge volume of resources for that, including, you know, you can find therapists that are secular. You can find
secular
a
therapy
virtual
project.
Yep, you can find a virtual support group that's you know, in your local community, usually, because they're all over the country now, and they're starting to get back together in face-to-face visits now that we're getting a little closer to be through COVID.
Well, Dr. Ray said that he might actually start doing some more stuff at the campground that he has there.
Oh, cool.
Which I want to throw together a big get-together at his campground too. So if and when that happens, I'll let you know.
One of my other great moments of claim to fame was I did a podcast episode with Dr. Ray.
He's so awesome.
Yeah, so this was with Bill Reel, who I mentioned earlier is a great content creator, podcast, and producer of several podcasts actually. And it was when I started the volunteer program. I was trying to promote and bring people online to that virtual support group here in Salt Lake City and the greater sort of Mormon community, ex-Mormon community and culture. And Dr. Ray and I and Bill got together and talked about all of this. So that was about little not quite 2 years ago. And then just a little while ago, about 2 months ago, I recognized that TikTok is a place. I saw these lives starting to happen, like late at night. I'd hop on and I'd see these lives talking, and some of the lives are like, you know, Jesus is your brother, and you know, the next live,
Yeah.
and the next live is you know, Islam is the truth.
Prove God's existence.
The next one is prove God exists. You know, so like, what is this
Yeah.
zoo of lives happening? You just go swipe of the thumb, and I can like be talking face to face. But the more like I spent, you know, a little bit more time looking at it, and I realized at a certain point, I was like, not a single one of these is directly addressing. A lot of people want to talk about, here's why I left, here's, you know, whatever, and those are all good ways to support, but none of them are coming out directly and saying, here's a live where we're going to invite people up to tell their deconstruction story, and the main point of the project is to, or the main point of the live would be to say, you're not alone, and it's okay to start talking about this, to normalize these experiences, right? And so I had like 34 followers when I had this realization, and I was like, I'm going to do a live. And so I'm like,
now you need 1,000.
How do I do a live? And the first thing I see is must have 1,000 followers on TikTok's, you know, rules or whatever. I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? I got to get to 1,000 followers. And so I started creating videos and just saw the ones that like got more followers and more views and whatever. And over about the course of about a month, and producing about 7 or 8 videos, and even just asking the TikTok community like out front, hey, I just need 1,000 followers because I want to do lives to help people who are in crisis, you know. And it took me about a month, and I got to 1,000 followers, and I started doing lives.
That's amazing, because I'm still 210 away from 1,000.
Well, you should join. I can't. That's the thing, is I can't even like let you up in on one of my lives until you have the 1,000 followers. What I should do is just
I know.
Start following.
I know. I had another guy that
there's yeah. So that was a fun little journey for me. It helped me actually. It was cathartic, because I got to get out a few of these things that had been sort of stuck inside for a while in creating these videos, because I'm going to put this out to the world, right? Like, what do I want to say about my deconstruction story?
You've created some really good stuff, Shane. That's for sure.
Oh, thank you. It's been fun, and I have 3 kids that are all like youngish, and so I have very limited time, and it has to be done on. So they're very sparse. I see these other content creators that are doing like 2 a day, and I can't keep up with that kind of clip, but I do the best I can to try and keep it.
Yeah. Just putting them out there helps, right? You know, I didn't know how exactly this was going to affect the community that I'm now a part of. So I started doing these back in, I think it was 2018, so before the pandemic. Oh, thanks, Dave. You rock, Dave. One of these days we'll get together again and have a cigar and a scotch, and I'll break my I can't drink because I'm on blood thinners rule just for you, Dave.
Break the doctor recommendation.
Yeah, well, I'll just go off them for a couple of days. I had to do that recently for some dental work, so I know I can, and nothing big happens. Like, I don't suddenly, my leg doesn't go and swell up again or nothing, so I can do it. But next time I'm at one of the conventions, because I do quite a few of the conventions, like we did. The last one we did was the Better Conference. Mikey and I went to that one, and I've done a couple of the Faithless Forums, but the second one I went to, I was a panelist as well, so I got up on stage and talked to people and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. I'll be doing more in time.
Yeah.
I highly recommend if you can make something like that, Shane. They're a lot of fun, and you get to meet a lot of really cool people like Dave Warnock there. So
great.
It's amazing. Where the hell was I going? I can't remember what I was saying now.
We were talking about TikTok content.
Yeah.
You were talking about the influence that you didn't expect to have. Yeah.
Right. And I started out doing it, and you know, it was kind of a slow crawl. It took me a while just to get up to 500 subscribers on YouTube. Now I'm past 3,100, which I'm blown away by. So, and the numbers keep growing. But mind you, being on Paula Gia's channel kind of helped, because I did an episode with him about deconstruction and stuff like that. So we did that, right? So that kind of helped a lot too. And of course, when Shannon Q, Paul's girlfriend, I'm not sure if you're familiar with her, when she gets all drunk up, she'll start posting my channel every time I pop into the chat. So that helps as well, because she's got like a gazillion followers as well, or subscribers too. But now I get emails from people saying, I'm really glad that I found your channel, or that there's a channel like yours that helps me, because I was in, a real state at the time, and finding some of your videos, I was able to find some that really hit home to me and help me sort of process some of the thoughts I'm having, some of the questions I'm having. And now I feel a lot better about it. So, and I'm like, wow, shit. Okay. And I probably get maybe a couple every week of emails like this.
That's gotta feel so good.
Yeah, it does, man. It warms my heart, and it just makes me want to keep doing this too, right? So if you want to, thanks Dave for stopping by. If you want to keep me out here, guys, I do have a Patreon that you can become a patron of. So that's all down below in the links below. Also, I've got Shane's TikTok if you want to follow him around on TikTok as well. If you want to throw him a friend request on Facebook, they're both down there for you if you want to get to know Shane a little more as well. Yeah, so getting stuff like that, and I've actually bumped into somebody in public who told me that they found my channel right here where I live.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
So yeah, that's pretty cool when something like that happens. So I'm just going to keep on doing it.
I think you should. I think it's definitely a good thing for sure.
Yeah, tomorrow night, guys, by the way, I'm going to be on the line. I'm pretty sure it'll be with Matt. So Matt Dillahunty and I will be hosting the line tomorrow, or whatever it is.
Love Matt. I love Matt's stuff.
Matt's great. Matt's great. I've been to his house. He's a good guy, and we had a blast down there. So we're going to be co-hosting the line tomorrow night. So that should be fun. Yeah, apostasy, or Stacy actually is saying Forrest Valkai is his name. He's a scientist, mostly biology and stuff like that. He is amazing, and I'm still trying to get him on here too because I know he has the story. But anyway,
Forrest Valkai, I'll have to look that up. Is he?
Yeah, he's so good. Yep, he has his own channel. He has his TikTok. He also co-hosts on like the Atheist Experience. He's done Talk Even before, stuff like that. So, yeah, that's the one I haven't done is Atheist Experience. I've done pretty much. I'm well, not so common now, a co-host of the nonprofits. But I've been on that. I've been on Talk Heathen. I've been on a couple other ones and whatnot. And a friend of mine and I are eventually going to start our own call-in show, so that'll happen at some point. But we had to put it on hold because COVID hit. He's moving. He's in the process of moving because he can't afford to be where he was. So once he settles in and we put the studio together, we'll kick in on that. So. Anyways, Shane, if you could go back in time and see your younger self, what advice would you give younger you from what you know now?
This is always a hard question for me. I do think about it a lot. It's always a hard question because I think what would be the right thing to say if my younger self is receiving this message, so that I could say it and not just like have, I don't know. Would I guess there's some conditions I would have to assume are real or not real. If I, as the younger self, am receiving this knowing that whatever the older me is telling me is actually true, or if I would receive it with my younger brain that was still sort of like resistant to what,
like street epistemologizing yourself.
I know. I'm like, what could I say? What could I say to myself to ask them? And maybe it would be just that very thing, like that actually shifted my epistemology, right? Like question. There's not a single thing, and maybe I would mention specifically because I think that's what it was you can say question everything. But to me, that never really meant anything until the one thing was specifically mentioned as it should be included in the everything, right? Like when you say question everything, just keep in mind that I mean also your religion, right? Like to be more direct,
or whatever belief system you're in.
Right, exactly. Like about every, and so that's why, like for me, even when you say like, question when by questioning everything, we should question everything. I still maintained for 40 years of my life, I still maintained that one caveat over here, and I didn't even know I was doing it. And so like really someone needed to say to me, while in the mode of thinking about how I should question everything, someone needed to pinpoint that little caveat that you have over there.
Yeah,
that is the everything. You've done everything else. I get that you're okay with everything, but that thing over there you keep carving out, that's everything. And that's why that moment for me when he said accept the church was what sort of broke the caveat down.
Yeah.
Right. For me, that's
exploding.
my experience. So maybe I would go back and I would say to myself something along the lines of, don't caveat the thing. Like don't like piece that out. It needs to be included in all that important questioning that you do as you grow up.
For sure. And real quick for Hellbound Hillbilly. True North Talk. There you go, buddy. You can mark that one off the bingo card.
True North Talk.
That's the name of the show that my friend and I are going to put on. When we
Nice. So he needed you to mention True North Talk in order to.
He needed me to mention the name of the show. She could mark that one off on there, or hit the bingo dabber on the card there.
There are certain tropes that this show unfortunately falls into.
Unfortunately.
I don't want to. Well, I'm not going to say the thing, so I'm just going to, like we can't even say how the stuff that we would normally say without these goons over in the side chat. It's like, oh, mark it on your squares, everyone. And then, so now it's like in your head, it's like, oh, I can't say it because then they're going to mark the square and get us.
There's no prizes, so who cares if they do?
Yeah. Who plays bingo for no prizes? Y'all need at least like a gift card to Best Buy or something. Or a free rental from your local Blockbuster.
So Neil, you mentioned street epistemology, and there is a rabbit holes period where I went down the street epistemology rabbit hole.
Anthony?
Yeah, you bet. I mean, Anthony's channel was amazing, and I went through his. I watched a few videos, and
you get hooked real easy.
Oh, I was just fascinated. I'm like,
yeah,
that's the question. It's like there's a moment, and he asked this question. And I was like, yeah, that's the perfect question.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Continues to ask like the great questions, It was nice to meet you too, Apostasy. Thanks. And so I got sort of hooked on it. And then I watched his, I think it's like 10 videos or whatever on like the methodology of it.
Yep.
And really tried to like drill down on the methodology. That helped me a lot. And to be honest, that smoothed my step over from just no longer believing in Mormonism and Christianity to start to take the bigger picture into the God question as well, right?
Sure.
Because I mean, ultimately, Anthony starts those talks with, we can talk about anything, you have a gnome in your yard that brings you good luck or whatever, but like, ultimately it all just sort of like funnels upward.
Yep.
And so every one of those that I listened to and critically thought about and tried to answer for myself in them, it was just an easy handhold walk through the park with Anthony into my atheism state, And so like that's kind of what brought me the rest of the way.
You're getting a lot of love in the chat there, Shane, by the way.
Oh, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Baptized in the church as a newborn. Mom
and Apostasy, that's a mom and daughter team. So there you go.
Oh, okay, cool, great. Well, it's nice to meet both of you. Did you guys deconvert together? It's probably hard to have the.
I think they both tried to sit each other down to tell each other that they were atheists
at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like sort of similar timing. Yeah.
It's like, Mom, I gotta tell you something. Oh my God, me neither.
You go first. No, you go first. No, you go first.
They're so cute much, right? When they're Canadian.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I'm aggressively Canadian, all right? Sorry.
Yeah, you're aggressive otters. Come on, man. I'm scared. I'm not afraid of you Canadians anymore. You're just otter petters.
Yep.
So one other cool story, since we're talking about Anthony, I was starting the process of getting trained to be a facilitator on the virtual support group in
How does that happen?
I got you.
Oh, now you're spread between all three screens. So the Recovering from Religion, and they go, I was going through the formal process of getting trained and everything. And one of the steps is to do a phone interview with someone from Recovering from Religion who volunteers their time to ask questions to ensure they're getting someone who's sincere and wants to do this and is in the right place and all that, right? And so I get on the phone and the interview starts asking questions, and I'm like, I know that voice. And he keeps get deeper into the conversation, and I'm like, one of the questions he asked me early on is, who are some of the like voices, influencers, content creators, books, inspirations that have helped you in your deconversion. And I mentioned a whole bunch of them. And for sure, Anthony's channel was a big part of that. But for some reason, I just forgot it. And we keep walking along. If I had remembered to mention it, I for sure would have like clued in, like, I'm talking to Anthony. That's the voice, right? But I didn't. Later on in the conversation, I had in my mind, I was like, oh, I forgot to mention Anthony Magnabosco as one of those influencers. So I cut him off, or like I just where we were in the interview. And I said, oh, I just have to mention one more influencer that like really helped me was Anthony Magnabosco with street epistemology. And I was like, as I was saying it, I was realizing I'm talking to him. And so I was like, wait, is this you're Anthony? I'm talking to Anthony. He's like, yes, I was gonna say something when you started to say that. Yeah. I'm like, what the heck? And so we then had a whole conversation about like how much I loved his content.
He's a good dude. He's
a
good dude.
Yeah. Love that guy.
Yeah.
He was he was planning like a whole like tour, like trip to come out to Utah during general conferences like twice a year. All of the like big leaders come together and they give their big talks and stuff. He's planning to come and do like a short residency out here in interviewing people at parks and stuff, and near where people were gathering and traveling into this general conference events and stuff. And then COVID came along, and so I don't know if it ever actually realized. Yeah.
Yep. I'm about to say, I don't know how safe that is when ain't nobody getting the jab around there. You trying to hold interviews.
Well, I know that he was saying that he was going to come at some time or whatever, he was trying to, he wasn't disclosing anything like detailed, obviously. So.
It could happen eventually.
Yeah. That'd be nice.
Yeah. He'll be one of the folks when we start doing bigger events here in Vancouver, myself and Randolph, who run Canadian Atheists up here. We will be, he's definitely on the list. Same with Aaron Ra, and I'd love to have Matt and Seth up here as well.
Yeah.
Probably also a lot of folks, the Holy Kool-Aid, genetically modified skeptic.
Yep.
All those guys. I know them all now, thankfully, for going, all these different places and meeting them and hanging out with them and stuff like that. And, doing Thanksgiving with them last year and whatnot was really cool.
Yeah.
So,
Every time I watch a genetically modified skeptic video, I'm always like, I always feel old.
He has that effect on people, because I've played him Mario Kart. He has an emulator on his computer, and I used to be really good at it when I was out. And I'm like, I could take it. He fucking cleaned the floor with me. I'm like, God damn it.
He just look. I don't even know how old he is, but he looks so much younger than me. And so I'm always like, oh man, I'm up there.
I think he's 30 now, or getting close to 30.
Oh wow.
Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't want to mess with us millennials when it comes to Mario Kart. We will take your lunch money. All right. We'll take your socks. We'll take your shoes, your socks. We'll clean you out.
I would like to try. I'll talk no trash going in, because it's probably true. But I did work for a tech company where we had a gaming, like lunchtime was gaming time, and we were Mario Kart like most days.
Oh, I fucking love that game.
So I got some great practice. Yeah. And I still just destroy my children, obviously. But.
Absolutely, without any hesitation or any empathy. They must be taught humility.
That's right.
You're gonna learn today. You don't mess with Papa Bear when he got the sticks. You going down.
Oh, I'm fucking ready.
Yeah, I love it. Yep.
All right. Well, we've gone over the hour, Shane. I do want to thank you very, very much for coming and hanging out, because I pretty much just, popped into your chat and said, hey, come on my show. And you're like, okay. So it was like really, really cool that you did that. And it was great to get to know you. And you are going to come back and for the after party for a little bit. So, but we have to remember, folks, that Shane does have a family, and he can stick around for a little bit, and then he's probably got to go do some dad stuff and whatnot. So,
yeah. And did you say that I'm mostly interested in, if people have a need or feel like they want to share this with anybody, the TikTok lives that I do is kind of the big push right now. Did you say I do have a link tree? I guess I could share that with you.
Oh, I should have just had your link tree.
There's the Recovering from Religion virtual support group, which is it's hosted through Meetup that I use, and it's on that link tree. Then of course, Shane Deconstructs is my handle on TikTok.
I do have your TikTok down below, so they can click that.
And on that TikTok, you can find a link tree from there.
I'll get it for
Oh, there you go, folks. But will you put it in the description box?
Me?
You can do it. Sure you can.
Little old me. Oh, this isn't you. Are you doing TRX Yoga Foundation's course?
No, that is not me. I just put it in our chat here in this.
Perfect.
Oh, okay.
There it is. It's just Linktree Shane_Larsen.
Excellent. I will add it to the link.
I'm doing it right
below. Oh,
excellent.
I pay him for, so yeah.
Yeah, following on TikTok is huge, and then of course those virtual support groups that we do through Recovering from Religion. That's another one that's really good there. And then there's some like ex-Mormon stuff and in there that's it's fun to look through. Including I just put this up recently. I put up my resignation letter. And so this is a thing that a lot of people don't realize, that resigning from the Mormon church is a much harder process than it is for like most religions, where like you just walk away and you'd say like, hey, take me off your records or whatever it is. I'm no longer a member. Right. It doesn't really work that way in Mormonism. You have to get like kind of like legal counsel. So there's a letter in there. It's a template letter that I provided for everyone that I used, that I sent into the church records department, and it has to be notarized. So you have to have like legal jargon in there, essentially like threaten them with like legal backlash and have it notarized, and you have to have your membership number, which isn't easy to find. I mean, there's all these loopholes you have to run. You have to
Can you get your tithing back though?
Oh, I wish. That'd be nice.
Yeah. I put my kids through college with that shit.
Suddenly our records have become quite fuzzy. So I think you gave us $10 over the last 20 years.
If you go to ex-Mormon Reddit, you can see all sorts of horror stories and people trying to remove their records for years, and they're trying to get rid of them. And the missionaries keep showing up at their doorstep. When they move to a new place, they eventually find them.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to law school, and I'm just going to start suing the Mormon Church full time to get people's records expunged. There's
an attorney here in Salt Lake City who does pro bono work, and he created an organization that is busy as fuck. It's called quitmormon.org. We
got to get a hold of him.
Yeah, no kidding. He's a stud of a guy. I think he's pretty busy because he does this on the side, but it could be worth reaching out to him. I've had a couple conversations with him. Yep.
All right, let's get this wrapped up. And let's get into that after party. You guys remember that we do take a little bit of a break between the two shows. So if you're interested in joining us and saying hi to Shane, if there was a question you didn't get to ask, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer it for you. So thank you, everyone in the chat, for hanging out with us. I hope you guys had fun tonight. Don't forget about the links in the description box below. And also thank you to my wonderful patrons. I wouldn't be able to do this without you guys, so I appreciate all you do for the show. And like I always say at the end of the interviews, wait, one more thing. If you guys dig the tunes in the beginning and the intros and outros of the shows, you can check out my SoundCloud link below, because that's all me, baby. So until then, guys, like I always say at the end of the after parties, at the end of the interviews, like the late, great Christopher Hitchens once said, it's called faith because it's not knowledge. And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Thanks.